Hi, my name is Eva Böth. I am a student at Cube Ceramics in Folkestone. Today I will be making a large Kurinuki chawan.
Hello, my name is Mara McDonough. I'm currently a senior here at Queen's College studying ceramics. Today I will be making my Better Together mug for the Student Scud competition. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the student contest, the Win a Scut Kiln this year. Scut's been hosting the student contest for the last 6 years. The first 5 were actually held at the NCECA Convention Center in the Scut booth. And as you already know, last year's unfortunately was canceled because of the COVID situation. And so we did it virtually last year. And this year we are doing it virtually again, and hopefully next year we will be in person again at the Scut booth. But I'm Paul Blaze, the host of the Potters Cast. I'm excited to be here with our judge, Stephen Hill. Stephen, thanks for doing this.
Hi, Paul. I really appreciate doing it, and I really enjoy the process. It's kept me occupied for about the last 24 hours, poring over videos.
And we've got some pretty amazing videos that have come in through all the students that have joined the contest here, isn't there?
Well, we do, and it was really difficult, as always, to come up with the winners, because my favorite way to do this would just be to give an award to everybody.
Yes.
Because I really appreciate the fact that they're willing to put themselves on the line as students and to be available for all the world to see and judge.
Right.
I'm not the only one judging. All their peers are judging what they're doing too. So I think it bodes well for their future in ceramics.
And judging, I think I've always thought it's a bit subjective. But having said that, I've always respected your eye on the people that you've chosen. And what's been interesting about the live contests that we did in the past was that it was pretty much a blind contest. Because I've even heard you say afterwards to some people, "Oh, had I known how old you were, I would have had you win today."
Well, it's still blind in a way, because I don't know any of the backgrounds or the age on any of the people. But the difference is I had to make a spur of the moment decision, and when it was in person. Now I could stay up all night and mull it over in my head and second guess myself.
Yes. Okay. So here we are on day 1 of the 3 days worth of the student contest, and so we have 3 winners each day, and we're going to go through them starting from the 3rd, and we're going to work our way up through the 1st. And can you explain what each person in terms of placement is going to win through the process, and then what'll happen on the Grand Awards video, what will happen there also? So tell us first off what the 3 contestants each day will win, and then what the Grand Awards will be taking place. What will happen there?
Okay, well, the 3rd place winner each day will win $25. Second place is $50, and first place is $100. That's wow. Each of the 3 days of the contest. And then the grand prize, well, there will be an overall functional award. Some of the most inspiring videos in this whole series are probably not very functional in terms of a mug. So I decided it would be great to give a functional award for what I think is the best functional piece, the one I would be more likely to use. And that will be another $100 award. And the grand award is going to be a Scut 818 computerized kiln with a touchscreen, furniture, and an EnviroVent. So wow. Grand prize is going to be an amazing gift for somebody.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that touchscreen is absolutely stunning. It is
Oh, I've
so
only been
amazing.
using the touch screen for about 2 firings so far. I've just recently got a 1022 with a touch screen, and it is amazing. It's just as intuitive as using my phone.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
sweet.
the
Okay.
old computers were not intuitive at all. You had to like memorize how to use them.
Open up the manual every time, figure out what's
Yes.
going on. Yes. Okay, so let's jump into this then, Stephen. So who's our third place winner today?
Third place winner on the first day is Oliver Elias.
Oliver Elias. Nice. Let me share a screen then here. Oliver making his work. And so tell me what you were thinking about Oliver's work here.
Well, when I watched Oliver working, the first thing I noticed is that he had a pretty strong knack for working precisely. He his if he chose to, he could make something that was pretty mechanical and geometric in its final shape, and he does definitely include that aspect in his work. It's precise, somewhat mechanical, somewhat very geometric, but at the same time, he did a pretty good job of contrasting it with the organic elements of the handle involved, and that has
Let me bring it back to this shot right there. There we
we
go.
lost.
There it is.
I like the juxtaposition of the mechanical, precise cup with the very organic feel of the handles. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a sweet pot there. I really like that one. That was a great choice. That's definitely a third place piece for sure. I love that piece very much. So
You don't think it's a first or second?
well,
I'm just
hey, I'm not the
just giving
judge.
you a hard
I'm
time,
just saying I
Paul.
think you made a good choice there. That's all I'm saying, Stephen. So okay, and then you have a second place. Who's your second place winner for day one?
My second place winner is Kate Gray.
Kate Gray, nice. Okay, let's check out her work as you're talking. Go ahead, Stephen. So what is it about her work that really stood out for you?
Well, she again works with a certain amount of precision on her work. She has chose to work with two spheres that she offsets from each other. We'll kind of see her moving into that point. She's pinching spheres. She's doing it with quite a bit of precision for a pinched pot, and then she's juxtaposing them in a way that makes them offset. And one of the things I really like in her doing this is the way she uses the handle to kind of create balance to the form. The form is jutting forward, but the handle gives it enough upward balance that it doesn't look like it's falling over. And so I really
there it is.
enjoy the precision, but again, it's a very organic work overall, and I like the contrast in the texture on the two spheres.
That to me looks like a pot that I would really enjoy having in my hand, because it just looks so unusual and looks so much fun, like so much fun to have. So I love that choice. Yeah.
And it looks like it could potentially be somewhat comfortable too, although I have to admit that a pot like this is really more about the energy and the visual qualities than it probably is about the strict functionality of it.
That was a great choice, Stephen. I love that choice you made for that one. So now on your third, or not your third, but your number one pick for this, who did you choose for day one's number one place or your number one choice?
Okay, I'm sure I'm not going to get this name quite right, but Eva Butt, and she's obviously from somewhere other than United States upbringing, but I have no idea where she's from, and she is making a rather traditional chawan for the tea ceremony. And it's roughly thrown, or not, roughly hand built, and then textured very deeply as she's working, and makes a very dynamic form, one that is just full of rugged beauty, I think. And one of the things I really like about her form is the way it's set up on the foot, and it looks like something that would actually, I'm no expert on the tea ceremony, but it looks like something that could have been embraced by a tea master.
Yeah,
I think she brought a lot of skill and comfort to this traditional form.
yeah, Karanuki. I love Karanuki, and that is just a beautiful pot there. Yeah, super beautiful pot. I love that.
So congratulations to Eva.
Yeah, so 3 winners there.
Congratulations to Oliver, Kate, and Eva.
Yeah, those are all some beautiful choices. Well, I'm looking forward to see what you come up with for day 2 in terms of who you chose from that group for the day 2 group, because those are some really sweet pots that come out of that whole day 2 thing. And I don't envy you having to pick those, because there's some really good ones coming up. So
it's not easy.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for doing this with me on day 1. Appreciate it, and lots of love to you, bro.
Thanks, Paul.
Hey, just wanted to pop on here real quickly, just as a reminder. We've got a special thing that Stephen is doing after each day of the recordings of with the demos. So, Stephen, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Thanks, Paul. As one of the highlights for NCECA for me is being able to do a demo at the Scott booth each time. It's always a throwing demo of some kind, since I am a wheel thrower. But I recorded 3 throwing demos that will be featured with each of the 3 days of the contest. On day 1, my demo is throwing a tulip mug, which is my term for one of the shapes of the mugs I make. Day 2 is a tankard, flat bottom, taller, like beer mug. And on day 3, I'm doing a demo of Unomi, a handleless vessel for drinking tea. And each of those videos is about 20 minutes long, so they're fairly involved. I throw, I trim, and I pull handles in the demo, everything up to the point of glazing and firing. So please check them out along with the video entries from the students.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those, Steve. Thanks for doing them.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to NCECA 2021. My name is Stephen Hill, and I'm going to be doing a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to be judging the student throwing contest at the Scott booth. And this year the focus of the throwing contest is on drinking vessels. Everything from mugs to steins to tea bowls to Unomis. And totally open-ended as long as you can drink from it. And we'll be judging students on the first, second, and the third day, and there'll be prizes each day. And then the grand prize at the end of the contest is a new Scott kiln, which is pretty exciting. But anyway, since the focus is on drinking vessels, I will be throwing 3 different drinking vessels this week. And first will be what I call a tulip mug, and it derived its name from the fact that when I finished it, it kind of reminded me of a tulip shape. Tomorrow I'll be throwing a tankard, and on the last day I'll be throwing a Unomi. So anyway, I'm going to get started here. This is standard 257 porcelain. It's my favorite clay to throw with, And I use porcelain because, not because it's translucent and pristine, but because it provides a nice white background for my glazes, which brightens up the colors just a little bit. And this is about 2 pounds, a little under 2 pounds, probably about 1.75 pounds. So as I center this, one of the things I like to do is to kind of center it like a doorknob with a smaller stem underneath. It gives me something a little closer to what I need as I'm throwing the actual piece. And essentially it's going to have a flat bottom, but actually the bottom is going to have a slight curve to it. And it's going to have a trimmed foot. And so I'm leaving about a 1/2 inch of clay to make up the foot. And I'm using my trusty Kemper S4 stainless steel scraper to compress the bottom. And I'm using that curved side so I can get a slight dished effect to it. You can see my edge that I'm forming down towards the bottom. That will be essentially the bottom of the piece, and that's about where the floor of the inside is. And that edge is going to be kind of emphasized and altered here as I'm throwing. A long time ago, I decided that my favorite pots were not precision thrown pieces. I like pots that have more of an organic, casual quality to them. And early on in my career, I was highly influenced by Japanese folk pottery. And so, at some point, I figured out that my general goal in ceramics was to allow myself to use the precision that comes naturally in my throwing, but at the same time kind of work at the end of that process to achieve the casual profile and the softness that I'm looking for in my work. So up to this point, it's pretty much just precision. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove a little bit of this clay on the underbelly. It gives me access to it for altering that ridge. And it also means that I don't have to trim quite as much when I'm ready to trim. So the first thing I'm going to alter to give it a more organic, casual quality is I'm going to alter the rim. I've got a little extra thickness at the rim so that it gives me something to stretch up against. And I'm going to use my thumb and my first 2 fingers to kind of gently grasp and pull the rim upward. And I try not to pull past that ridge at the top so that I don't make the rim too thin like a potato chip. hate potato chip rims. They don't work on my pots. I'm doing this kind of very casually in 3 different places. And right now it's just kind of a lumpy mess. And so what I want to do is go back and reestablish the roundness of the pot and apply just enough compression so that the only place the alteration shows up is on the way the rim rises and falls. Something that's kind of influenced by Japanese pottery in the beginning, but also by just looking out and seeing the rise and fall of the hills and valleys in the landscape. I'm using a chamois now to kind of hopefully get rid of the last vestiges of my finger marks on it. I really want this to look natural, like it was not manipulated by fingers. Okay, so now that I've got a rim that rises and falls, what I need to do is I need to bring this same sort of quality into other aspects of the pot. And next thing I'm going to tackle is this ridge down here, because it's kind of the upper border, the bottom border of the pot. And I'm going to give it a similar kind of rise and fall, but I'm going to do it in a completely different way. I'm using my Kemper S4 scraper, and I'm using this corner right here, which if I had a right angle it would make way too strong of a mark. This is soft enough that it makes a kind of a correspondingly softer mark. But I do use the actual corner, and I'm going to see, I get that undulation going up and down. So after I do that, I've still got the underside of the ridge here is still straight and symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my finger to kind of push up and make the bottom of the mug rise and fall like the mark I made with my scraper. So now you see there's a clear undulation that hopefully also relates to the rim of the pot. From a design standpoint, I'm always trying to compare rims and feet to achieve a cohesive sort of look with the alterations that I put on the piece. So next step here, I'm actually going to work with the rise and fall, and I'm going to create some lobes on the piece that divide the piece into diagonal divisions. And so you can see I'm going to start from a rise in the thing here. I'm going to use, this is a Mud Tools rib, but I'm really just using the straight edge of the rib. I press it in and pull it off to the right, which kind of gives, as I do this around the piece in 4 different locations, it gives a lobed form in the end. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put 4 distinct finger marks that correspond with the mark I put in. And when I trim the pot, you'll see why I'm putting these 4 finger impressions at the bottom. It helps me alter the foot. Then I'm going to come back and just reestablish the roundness at the rim. So it's very gentle at this point. So I'm not going to cut this off the bat because when I trim it, I'll be trimming it on a conical shape of soft clay, and I need the rim to be very leather hard, but I need the foot to be still pretty soft so that I can kind of trim it and manipulate it as easily as I want to. So if I don't cut this off now, it actually gives me a little bit more, a little less air gets to the bottom of the pot, and it doesn't dry out as much as the top does. So next step is on to trimming. Okay, this becomes my chuck. This is a piece I threw yesterday, very similar to what I just threw, and it's ready to trim. My chuck is a semi-leather hard piece that I also threw yesterday. It's a little soft. The rim is leather hard. This piece is a little softer than leather hard. It will hopefully stick together, but not stick together so much that I can't get them apart when I'm finished. A little centering, press it down, and I'm ready to trim the bottom. Now you see this has the finger marks on the bottom too, and I'm going to, as I'm trimming this, I'm going to show you why I put those on there. So I use Dolan trimming tools. I use several different related, a couple of these pear-shaped and this guy. I always start out with a fine tool because it creates less drag, and then I move up to bigger trimming tools because they cut a more sweeping path. So I cut back just far enough to get beyond the finger marks. And I start down here a little bit on the foot. And again, this is actually pretty soft up here because it's easier for me to trim this foot if it's soft, but yet it's got to be nice and leather hard down here to not be deformed by the way it's attached to the chuck. So I'm using a bigger tool this time, and at this point what I'm going to do, you see there's still evidence of depression here. I'm going to trim very slowly, and I'm going to let my trimming tool fall down into that depression. And you can see how the form is starting to undulate here. And it's all because those little finger marks were pressed under there when I first threw the piece, which gave me a little bit of a valley for the trimming tool to fall down in. When I've got a live audience, I usually ask how many people like to trim. And truth of the matter is, I do not like to trim. And I do my best to make an awful lot of pots that don't really get any trimming done beyond the actual trimming I do while I'm throwing. But on this pot, it's kind of a necessary thing. But if you don't like to trim, the only thing that's worse than trimming is trimming really slow. If I'm going along at a fast clip, trimming's not too bad, but this slow stuff is a pain in the rear, but necessary to get the effect I'm after. And as far as thickness, it's kind of a guessing game. The top is not wide enough for me to run my hand down and compare, so I have to just kind of stop when my intuition tells me it's time to stop. So I think you can probably see it. This line is starting to undulate. And of course, this outside edge is undulating even more. But those two things are really important to what I'm trying to do to make the bottom of this pot work. And make it work visually with the rest of the pot. Now I'm going to trim out the interior of the foot. And again, this is kind of a guessing game to get the thickness right down here. Sometimes they end up being just a little bottom head. Fortunately, I don't trim through them very often. So, this is soft enough down here that I still have the ability to kind of shape it a bit with a sponge. So I actually finish the bottom of my foot with fingers and a wet sponge. Using my fingernail to kind of dig in there to emphasize that transitional line. I also use a right-angled wooden tool. This started out as a wedge shape that I flattened the end out on with a grinder. I'll tell you this, the way that I trim this bottom is something it took me really years of trying to figure out. You know, some things you do just happen easy the first time. Some things never happen, and some things actually you struggle with for a long time, but then eventually you figure out what you're supposed to do. And that's kind of what happened down here. I used to make pots that had an undulating rim like you see here without the undulating stuff down here, and they just didn't seem finished. They didn't seem cohesive. And the part that made it all come together is when I stuck my finger under the bottom of the pot right after I threw it to make those indentions. That changed everything. So. And one thing that's going on here is that my lobes come up diagonally this way, and then at this point they turn and go back the other way. So it's like they're each one related to the mark on the underbelly along with the mark on the lobe itself. Okay, so this is the pot I just threw. This is the pot I just trimmed. This is one I trimmed earlier so that the foot's a little more leather hard. I'm going to pull a handle to put on here. The way I pull handles in general is you can pull a handle, lay it over something kind of round and let it stiffen up a little bit to where it holds its shape, or you can roll out a coil and stick it on the side of the pot and pull it in place. What I do is kind of in between. I pull the handle, I pull it just a little bit oversized, then I attach it to the pot and I re-pull it at that point. So this is a fairly generous mug, and the handle I'm going to put on it is something that was probably for most people going to be about a 3-finger handle. If you've got really big hands, it might be 2 fingers, or if you've got dainty hands, you might end up with putting all 4 fingers to it. For me, it'd be a 3-finger handle. So as I'm finishing the handle, I'm putting 3 traces down the front. I never make any of those thumb traces very deep. But to me it's important to see that evidence of how my thumb was working. So then I think I need that a little longer. A little longer. Cut this off far enough up down the taper so that I've got a thicker end here. So I determine where I'm going to put the handle. There's always one right spot, but it's pretty hard to explain, so I'm going to skip that. It's going to come out of just slightly above the widest part of the belly here. That liquid was a little vinegar. Doing a little scoring. And the handle, I hold it in my hand, it's still just freshly pulled, and I start pounding the end of it, spreading it into a flare. This flare is one of the most important things that I do because it gives me the clay to work with in order to spread the clay from the handle into the mug. So do a little scoring and vinegar on the end of this. Kind of twist, get the center part to take hold. Then I reach in from the sides and start pressing the rest of the handle in. I decided a long time ago that when I attach a handle, I want the handle to look as if it's growing out of the mug. You know, an inspiration might be the way a pumpkin stem is attached to a pumpkin, you know, but in the case of my mugs, it's a finger mark, and it has to do with how the the act of pulling the handle leaves its own unique marks, and I kind of like to work with that. Then the handle just kind of falls into place. Now I say it falls into place. If the handle doesn't have a good taper on it, sometimes it droops. It crimps, it falls, it doesn't hold its shape. But if you have a taper from this point down here, the handle becomes self-supporting and you don't have to really struggle with it too much, in theory. Okay, so here I've got a handle on. I've got a couple of similar pots over here that are finished. Two versions, couple of different glazes that have been fired. It's Cone 8 oxidation. I worked at Cone 10 reduction for 38 years, and then in 2009 I started firing in the electric kiln. And the colors come from a lot of sprayed and layered glazes that develop microcrystals on the surface. I have a controlled cooling, and hopefully what I just made will look something like this. What I just made, it's probably not going to shrink this much, but of course it will shrink and not be as large as it is right now. This clay has about 18% shrinkage, I think. So thank you so much. See you tomorrow.